I'm going to share with you a story, okay? When I was little, I got told that if you're ever walking home from school and you chance upon a bunch of fairies and they invite you to play with them, to dance with them, to drink, politely decline. Because what will happen is you'll accept their invitation and you'll be off with the fairies. And a little moment will pass from your perspective, but then you'll get back to the real world and a lot of time has gone by and everybody's moved on with their life and you've missed it, being off with the fairies. Now, I want you to replace the word fairy in that story with phone. Have you got it? Can you see where I'm coming from? Yes. My name is Christian Mauri, and I believe that people are supposed to create things, and when we stop creating things, we make up the gap by consuming things. And so tonight I want you to be a little bit more creative. This is my wish for you, okay? It's not an academic talk. I'm very, very grateful to Marilyn and to Joe for having me here. I am not a serious man. Okay, this is just going to be fun. Now, I'm just going to let you know where I'm coming from. England. When I was little, my aunties and my uncles would tell me all kinds of things to make the world an enchanted place. I can't help but smiling talking about it now. My auntie would point to a stump and say, that used to be the throne of a king. Did you know? My uncle Johnny, he took me to see these 2 dragons around about this size in Wimborne, and the night before he had spent a lot of care preparing me to see these dreadful beasts that used to terrorize the people all over Dorset until we cleverly turned them into steel, so now they watch over the village folk they used to gobble up. Can you imagine how excited I was? And then I get there and they're this size. My disappointment was indescribable. So I said to him, Uncle, why are the dragons so small? And he took me to the model town of Wimborne and said, because the world used to be a smaller place. You can tell it's an impression when you're talking about it 30 years later. Yeah. This enchantedness, I brought it with me. I take it with me everywhere I go. In Australia, rather than dragons and knights, we have bunyips and great serpents. This is a piece of art by Christopher Peace in Fremantle, just by Bathurst Beach. Look at the size of that serpent out beyond the roundhouse. Have you ever seen that before? Could you imagine you're a little kid and your auntie or uncle is taking you past this piece of art and they say, don't swim out too far from here, there's a giant serpent that might gobble you up. I reckon you'd remember that the rest of your life. And then you walk up from Bathurst Beach to Arthur's Head. Can you see the roundhouse there? Now, please try to see the world from my perspective with what I've said about dragons and gobbling up and giant snakes. And look at this sign. This is at the roundhouse over a precarious cliff of limestone. That's a giant, isn't it? For all the world, that's a giant toppling off a cliff. If you look, you're going to be seeing mythical beasts, magical creatures everywhere. You just have to look. I promise. Now, I've never been able to claim any true relationship with the mythical stories of Australia. I've never really felt sufficiently naturalized. But I really respect the ability of the First Nations people to keep these stories alive, and the ability of aunties and uncles around the world to enchant the place. And I'm really hoping that I can keep this tradition alive as well. So I acknowledge them, and I'm trying my best to keep it up. All right, now throughout the night, I'm going to be asking you to close your eyes. Don't be scared. Don't let my cap fool you. I'm not going to pick your pockets. I want you to close your eyes. Have you got it? Are your eyes closed? If you can see me looking at you, your eyes are open. I want you to think of a monster. Have you got your monster? All right. Think, how many feet does it have? Does it have feet or tentacles, scales or fur? How many heads? How many eyes? In a moment, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, turn to the person next to you. Don't name the monster, describe the monster. Do not name it, describe it to the person next to you. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Did anybody have the same monster? I'm willing to bet that all of your monsters looked and moved and flew and breathed and attacked differently, right? The monster is rather amorphous. It can change. I want you to keep this in mind, because tonight you're going to think maybe Christian is co-opting the idea of a monster or telling you how to think about it. The monster is the creation of your imagination, okay? So you do you. I'm just going to tell you the monsters I've been thinking about. Before I get there, I'm going to let you know where I'm coming from, okay? And it's not England this time. This is my professional work. I'm a professional trainer. I'm the de-escalation guy. I fly up and down the state helping people deal with sticky situations. That's what I do for a living. Here I am working with leaders in the Disability Service Centre. I went up north because a community with lots of First Nations kids got a new swimming pool, and they were worried that swim safety wasn't really an obvious thing to these kids, so I helped them with that too. There's a great variety to the people that I teach, okay? And I get lots of feedback. A trauma response to doing a PhD is obsessing over your feedback. So I have a great deal. Do you know what word pops up again and again in my feedback? Goblins. Now, I was looking for a photo of a goblin, and I came across this photo of my chihuahua, Tuppence, coming back from the beach. So he's our goblin for the evening, okay? This is Tuppence. Why is it that people are coming up to me 18 months later after meeting me and saying, I'm so proud that I've managed my goblins? I went to the airport in December last year, and at midnight, a security guard came up to me and told me how good he's doing with managing giants. What's up with this? 2 years later, okay? Giants, goblins, sirens, dragons. What's with these creatures? I throw these creatures out during my training so that the point sticks into the mind, into the head of the people that I train, and they go home with this point in their head, and then their wife or their husband says, what's on your mind? And they tell them, and my training proliferates through the community. Okay? Let me show you what I mean. I open up all my training with this photo here. What creature is this? Don't be shy. What creature is this? A siren. And what do sirens do? Yes. A siren will sing to sailors from the sea and lure them overboard where they'll drown in a watery grave. It's a terrible fate, just like Tuppence here. That's your mobile phone. You see, the mobile phone is the siren of the 20th century. It will sing to you from your pocket, and it will call to you from across the table, and you'll drown in its glassy screen. Sometimes it will even present as a beautiful woman. Okay? I make this analogy to people, and they'll remember it forevermore. I bet you're going to remember that for 18 months, 2 years, 4 years. You don't even need to try. You're currently expending no cognitive effort, but you're probably going to remember that for a very long time indeed. What a hack. Isn't that cool? So what's going on here? I'm going to share with you why this works and why we should take care of it moving forward. Okay, but first, let me see if imagination is working. What do we call the tallest buildings in our city skylines? Skyscrapers. Look at that. Have you ever thought about that word? Isn't that cool? Look at it. That's the Burj Khalifa scraping through a cloud, scraping the sky. It's like a Viking named this thing. Can you believe it? Beautiful. This is what we call a dead metaphor. A dead metaphor is a figure of speech which has lost the original imagery of its meaning because we've overused it. Now you hear the word skyscraper and you don't think of a great needle scraping the heavens. You just think of BHP. The world becomes a more wonderful place when you resuscitate our metaphors. I promise. So when I say that I'm reviving useful monsters, this is what I mean. I mean restoring the ability of a monster, and remember, the monster is what you need it to be, to reflect, reveal, instruct, warn, and sense-make of the world as it unfolds around us. This is what I mean by reviving useful monsters, okay? In a moment, I'm going to share with you a bunch of monsters, but first, I'm a recovering academic, so I need to give you a little bit more theory. I'm so sorry. Monster. When I asked you to think of a monster, you probably thought of all kinds of things, not a single being. I want you to think that monster comes from 3 different roots. There are 3 ingredients in monsters, okay? We have the Latin monstrare. Monster, monstrare, means to reveal, to reflect, to show us what we feel or idealize. Okay? It's like a mirror. Do you see how this is psychological? Yeah? Symbolic, sociological. Isn't that fun? It's not scary yet, though. That monster could easily be a fairy. Manare, right? This means to warn, to remind, to instruct. Don't swim too far out by Bathurst Beach. There's a giant serpent there, it might gobble you up. Okay? Manare has a social function. This is where monsters are used to help children behave themselves and not go off with the fairies. It's functional. Now here's the scary one. Monstrum. This is an evil omen. Okay? It's a portent. Yeah? This is when you are using the monster to get people to have an emotional response of fear or dread to make a point. Okay? These three together are the basil, the oregano, and the garlic of our bolognese. That is monster. Think of a giant. On the count of three, I'm going to get you all to call out one word that describes a giant. It's okay if it's not the same word as the person next to you. That just means you're more creative. 1, 2, 3. What? Huge, big. What else do we have? Loud, colossal. Yeah? Fat. Fat. Definitely. There is our big, fat, colossal giant. All right? This is something that I also could teach in my training. Okay? This has to do with how people learn, how they remember things, how stressed out they get. Okay? In other words, it's to do with a task. What is a giant in this context? A giant is a big, singular task. The exam at the end of the semester, finishing the renovations, writing that novel. Of undeniable relevance that demands your attention. People will ask you, how are things going with the giant? Slay the giant, win the day. That's how the story goes. When there's a bad giant, there's one of them, and you slay it, and the story's over. Congratulations, you did it. Now, the giant is the big, singular job. Okay? But here's a question. When's the last time you just had one big, singular job to do? And giggles ring across the crowd. I put it to you that even though giants have always been rare, granted, in modernity, the giant is endangered, maybe even extinct. We are instead living in the age of the goblin. Okay? Yeah. That one there, on the right-hand side, that's all of your email addresses. You've got 3 of them probably by this point, don't you? The one next to them are the random passwords. You've got 5, 6. He's winning. The one behind that is, when am I going to research what a good diet looks like, go to the shops, buy it, make it into a habit so I actually change. The one next to that is, when am I going to learn to do my tax return like a real boy? When am I going to call my mum, my brother? You see how each of these individually is nothing to complain about? Don't complain about calling your mother. But how many of you have had a whole bunch of little tasks to do, and then somebody gives you one more and you bite their head off? Yes? Yes. This is what we figured out about mental workload, about stress. Okay? In the age of the goblin, a dragon or a giant is a luxury. Okay? Goblins are small, an unending horde. They jostle activities. Okay? They compete for your attention and they'll eventually overwhelm you. And the thing is, you slay a goblin and another will step up to take its place. Okay? Please do keep this in mind. The 21st century doesn't need giant slayers anymore. It means goblin wranglers. Does this click with you? Does this help you understand your relation to the modern world a bit more, to contemporary work and stress? Yeah? You're probably going to remember that for about another 2 or 3 years as well, effortlessly. Look, none of you are even frowning. It's easy. I saw this recently. Do you know what the 2022 Oxford English Dictionary word of the year was? Goblin mode. Goblin mode. Okay? What goblin mode means is you get overwhelmed by the world, so you retreat to your room, and you wake up at 1 p.m., and you spend the rest of the day on your bed, doom scrolling, eating crunchy pieces of toast off your belly like an otter. Doesn't that sound nice? That sounds like the Sabbath. That sounds really nice. It sounds like a luxury. Here's the point. If you let the goblins overwhelm you, they'll take you back to their lair and you too will become a goblin. It's existing in the public consciousness already. Let's just revitalize it a little bit. Okay, here's why it works. It turns out that if you want to get somebody to learn something and iterate it, there's better and worse ways to do it. If you do what I'm doing now, which is stand before you and lecture, you might remember 5% of what I have to say. You'll remember more because of the techniques I'm using, but typically 5%. If you do a demonstration, if you have a science teacher who puts bicarb soda in vinegar to make a volcano, the kids will remember that demonstration, if not the science, 30%. It turns out that the best way to get people to learn something and iterate is to teach others. That's the best way. This is why, if you're good at telling jokes, I can bet what you tend to do. What you tend to do is you hear a joke and then you say, that's so funny, but do you know what would be funnier? Those are the people who remember jokes. If you're a musician, you probably know how to play a song by muscle memory, but until somebody asks you how it's done, you don't know the chords. You need to show them, then you know the song a little bit better, don't you? This is how it works. To learn something, you tell it to others in your own words, because you need to have a sense of cognitive ownership. Reading aloud does not count. You do it expressively, gesticulation, okay? Summon your inner actor, makes it more thrilling. And you put it in a way that the person can relate to. A town they know, a person they know, something that they can imagine. And then you repeat as needed. Now, here's what is so exciting. Every now and then, stars align, and what seems like a really dry concept clicks with something utterly beautiful. Here's an example. Yes, those 5 points there are a way of describing learning, but do you know what they also describe? A story. Who said that? This describes what it takes to keep a story alive and be a good storyteller. Isn't that incredible? We finally figured out how we get people to learn, and the answer is a good yarn. Don't you love that? Oh my God, the world is a beautiful place if you check it out a bit. Now, with that in mind, shall we turn to our monsters? Are you excited? Can I have a lap-based drum roll, please? Fairies. Well done. Think of fairies. What do you think of when you think of fairies? What size is a fairy? Little? All right, keep that word in mind. Little, short, many. Think of these words. Here, we have the original deepfake. Have you seen this before? You know this? This is the straight-up grandmother of deepfakes. Here we have a little girl and her sister behind the camera who have figured out photography, and they've been putting fairies in their film, convincing the people around them that fairies are real. Isn't that fun? Now, how many of you will sit down saying, I'm just going to watch 1 or 2 TikTok videos? They're only little. They're only small. But then it's 2 a.m. and you've done it again. How could you? Relatable? The most relatable example of being off with the fairies as an adult is not getting lost on the way home from school. It's sitting on your bed and being lost in the algorithm. Yeah? Now think about this. If you were going to describe relationships to technology to a little kid so that they remember it, what do you think they'll remember more? Describing dopamine traps and digital hygiene, post-COVID, digital hygiene, or this, describing it as off with the fairies. What's going to land? Off with the fairies, exactly. Now, it was really exciting because as I was making this, something incredible happened on the Australian airwaves. Who here recognizes these 2 people? This is Kyle and Jackie O, okay, radio hosts. They had a contract for $200 million, $100 million each over the next 10 years, just to not blow it, right? They had a huge spat live on air. It went for 9 minutes. It was the tip of the iceberg, but they might break up now. Here's what they were arguing about. Jackie O is obsessed with astrology. She doesn't read it in the newspapers or in the stars, she reads it on her phone. In a 9-minute spat, Kyle accused her of being off with the fairies 5 times. Okay? It's in the public discourse already, right? Let's revitalize these useful monsters. Here's another one. Think of Medusa. What does Medusa look like? You're good at this. What happens if you look at Medusa? Come on, we're eloquent here. What happens if you look at Medusa? Petrified. Yes, a man of culture again. You get turned to stone. Here's Medusa. Isn't she dreadful? If you look at her, you get petrified, turned to stone. Your last expression is your last. There you stand, not moving anymore. Medusa was slain by Perseus. He was very clever. He cut off her head and pocketed it. Perseus cuts off the head of Medusa and he pockets it, puts it in a bag. Okay? Doesn't leave it behind, takes it with him. Please keep that in mind, okay? Here is a photo from 2010, before iPhones ruled the earth, of a bunch of people in China looking at a roller coaster. Look at the joy on their face. Look at this gentleman in the brown jacket. Does he look happy? Look at this guy in the foreground with the white sleeves leaning forward. Does he look like he wants to be on that roller coaster? No, right? He's kind of grimacing. He's like, glad that isn't me. Are these emotional faces? Yes? All right, but hang on, take a moment. Let's take the Medusa out of our pocket. Same theme park, 2017. That woman with the little hat, what's her face saying?
I'm not Fink.
I'm not Fink, exactly. That little boy in the foreground, what's his face saying?
Phone is sucking me.
Probably. Petrified. Yeah? C.S. Lewis, he made a beautiful distinction. One day he was in his tool shed and he was looking at the tools on the other side of a room and a shaft of light came in and he realized he was no longer looking at the tools, he was looking at the shaft of light itself. He wasn't looking through the light anymore, he was looking at the light. These people aren't looking through their phones. If they were, they would be smiling. They're looking at their phones. There's a difference. Do you see this difference? Have you had to swerve around petrified beings in the street lately?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. It's a good analogy, isn't it, Medusa? Think of a troll. A bit more ambiguous, isn't it? What does that mean nowadays? Richard, what did you think of?
That was a small-ish, slimy, misshapen individual.
Very good, very good. James, what did you think of?
Scandinavians looking for big.
Ah, very good, very good, very good. Ian, what did you think of?
Some sort of weird-looking monster standing at one end of the bridge, collecting money to let the person across the bridge.
That's the taxman. I'm asking about a troll. Kayleen, what did you think of?
Big, ugly, lumpy guy with a club.
Aha, aha. Okay, now we've got a number of options here. Some of you would have thought of that. We call this the Lord of the Rings troll. Yeah, freezes in sunlight. Some of you, the older ones, would have thought of a Billy Goat's gruff.
Yes.
The troll emerges from neath a bridge. Remember, a bridge is a medium and accosts people, bothers them. The younger here would have thought not of a beast, but of a face. I was kind of hoping, because I know that James is a fisherman, that he would have said this. To troll is to put a whole bunch of bait behind you on a boat, but beneath the bait is a hook, and you drag a whole bunch of fish along. And I'm sure there's one person here that would have thought of this. Andrew Tate. Now here's the thing. This is a beautiful instance of all of these ideas coming together. Check this out. You expose these people to daylight, they often disappear. They emerge from neath a medium online, a bridge, and accost you. They do it for the kicks, for troll face, and they string you along. And if you bite that bait, neath is a hook, and you've just gotten that bastard a new Lamborghini. Let's not feed the trolls, that's a more obvious one. These last few ones are more abstract, but rather original. Are you ready? A Hydra. A Hydra is a multi-headed beast. It attacks you from the right here, it attacks you from the left with a different head each time, and it begs for your attention from the left to the right and overwhelms you. Yeah? If you cut off the head of a Hydra, 2 more grow back. You've just made your problem worse, not better. Yeah? The trick for fighting a Hydra is not to be distracted by the heads and attack them, but to kill it with fire, or go for the body, or simply do what wise people do and pick their battles and walk around. Yeah? Can you guess what social phenomenon online I am referring to by the Hydra? You're all right. Isn't that fun? You can do whatever you want with this. You're all right if you can articulate it well enough. Here's an example. This is Jemima Talbot. She's a journalist. This is an exchange she had online. I'm going to read these aloud. I want you to notice how you feel. The first one is a response to do with vaccinations. Somebody has said, my doctor fully supports my children's right to not be vaccinated, as do the administration at their public school. How does that make you feel? Are you feeling something? Yeah? Not feeling nothing, feeling something? All right, we've got some great bait here. Look at this next one. This is a response. You also have a weight issue. And what looks to be a fertility issue too, based on one of either of your adopted children. But go on with your health lecture. How does that make you feel, people? Angry. Yeah, funny that. Now, suppose that Jemima replies, you are a bully, yikes. You want to look at my profile picture and make some inappropriate assumptions about me as well? Fair enough, right? Now, here's what's going to happen next. Jemima, next time she goes to the toilet, she's going to take out her phone. She's going to look at it, and there's going to be a notification, and there's going to be somebody replying who she's never met, and they're going to be really mean to her. The next day, there'll be another person too now. She's never met them, really mean to her. If she replies to either, the next week, there'll be 5 more. Are you seeing what's happening here? Fun fact. These first 2 comments are not real people. They're bots. They don't exist. They're an algorithmic device that generates things to make you angry so you reply, and then the Hydra head can see you and attack. That's how these things work. It might feel good to cut off a head of a Hydra and respond to a bot, but if you do that, 2 more will grow back. How do we defeat the Hydra? You're getting it. You're nailing it. You've got it. Set it on fire. After the show, we're going to the data center, and we are actually going to set it on fire. Change begins today. Isn't that a good cautionary tale? I love it. Right, a few more. Warning, the next ones are going to get raunchy. Is there anybody here under the age of 18? You there, boy. Think of a nymph. Okay? So people of culture or people without any whatsoever will both know what the nymph is. Here we have Helas and the Nymph by Waterhouse. If he accepts the invitation into that lovely little pool, what do you think is going to happen to him? Will it go well? Mate, wait, it's not what you think. It's probably going to go pretty poorly. Here's what a nymph is. Stories vary, of course, but a nymph is an unbelievably beautiful, in fact, fascinatingly beautiful young woman who lives in a specific environment. You never see her in a different environment. You only ever see her in that environment. Wood nymph, mountain nymph, river nymph. And if you pursue her, you'll never catch her, except on the occasions that you do, and then something dreadful will happen, either to you or to the nymph, a metamorphosis of sorts. You'll change or she'll change, and it'll be shocking to everybody involved. This is the repeated story of the nymph. Can you guess what I'm referring to here? Here is my first impression of a nymph. Over there I have a book that I bought when I was about 9 years old at book club in my primary school. It's Ulysses, okay? Here's Ulysses in the castle of Circe with his men. There we have a wood nymph and a cloud nymph and a river nymph, bringing them food and drink, and they're stuffing their faces. When you're scrolling and you're reading all that content, what do they call that content? Feed. Doesn't the universe have a sense of humor? Isn't it lovely? They're feeding. What eventually happens is these men start to turn into swine. Yeah? They turn into swine, and then eventually Circe says to them, all right, job done, metamorphosis complete, to the styes. And to the styes they go, because they believe they're swine now, and that's where swine belong, in the styes. There we have Instagram, Twitch, and X videos, which is a pornography site. To the styes. I was in Japan last year and I went to an onsen. That's the place where families go to bathe after work and school. Little boys go in there with their dads, and up the front was this poster, and it was all throughout as well. Do they not look like nymphs? Yeah? Imagine seeing this when you're going to bathe your little 9-year-old boy. Busty nymphs everywhere you go at the bathhouse. Yeah, you like that? Right, this next part's going to get a little bit heavy, but I promise you it's going to get lighter. Okay, we're at the hourglass. We're at the bottleneck. Here's the heavy part. If you were to watch me watching YouTube, you'd call a psychiatrist. Okay? I spent a lot of time watching people crying in their cars. Okay, I'm a sociologist. It's a problem. This guy's 25 years old. Here's what he's written. I know it's social media and I'm supposed to act cool. I'm supposed to show you my sports car that I'm in right now and take off my shirt to show the physique that can get any girl I want, because that's what you want to see. He's crying as he's saying this, what we call ugly crying in a sports car. What you don't know, what you don't want to hear is that I'm 25. I have a crippling porn addiction. I've spent $20,000 on OnlyFans. I have no sex life because I have erectile dysfunction whenever I try to get with a girl. Now, consider this. He started watching this stuff when he was about the age of those boys at that bathhouse, and he has to say, I'm not a neuroscientist, but anything like that, but think about starting that kind of behavior at such an impressionable young age and continuing it for 10 years. I wish I was allowed to be a kid. If you watch these guys, like I do, they are using the language of brain trauma to describe themselves now. Brain trauma. They're saying, I was shown pornography at 10 and it wrecked my brain. Okay? I'm damaged. I'm disaffected. Now I try relationships and they fail because I'm a monster to the styes. And eventually you accept what you are. You do what you can to feel something because all you can feel is nothing. Yeah. I went to the dog park and I was describing this talk that I'm going to give to a mum, her sister, and a son that was there. And as I described this, they turned to him and teased him and said, they're talking about you. Do you reckon that boy laughed? No. All right, here we go. But what about the women? What about the producers? Because it is disproportionate, users and producers. Here's a description. They're local entities, the nymphs. Their essence and their function is intimately tied to the very specific place that they inhabit. There's Belle Delphine. She's one of the most famous Instagram models of all time. She sold her bathwater in little canisters and made 90 grand. Okay? If you were to walk past her in the street, you would not recognize her. You could go to university with her, sit next to her every day, and you would not know you're sitting next to a celebrity. Do you think she looks like that outside of that pink bedroom? Beyond the domain of that laptop she has by her lap, do you think she has pink hair? Okay? Belle Delphine, the personality, is confined to a specific environment that she inhabits. If that environment becomes contaminated, yeah, her health and her vitality will deteriorate. Her wealth, she'll have to do more and more extreme things. Now, check this out. Same thing's happening in China. Look at all these women. That's a bridge that we're sitting in front of. Bridge nymphs. That's where you see them from. Now, in later Christian tellings, I had a hard time finding some of these. The nymph starts adopting girls. The nymphs don't just go for the boys, they start going for the girls to teach them how to become nymphs. Yeah? A lot of these girls, they get one another to go on Instagram, and then after that to go on OnlyFans. They recruit one another. There's a pipeline from Instagram to OnlyFans. This is the most popular male host in all of Japan. His name is Roland. Guess how much it costs for a single night with Roland? Okay? Do you think Roland is replaceable with a chatbot? Do you think there are artificial chatbot companions of Roland sweeping through Japan at the moment? Do you think they're free? I've come up with a new term, volcel. Incel means involuntarily celibate, okay? It's an internet phenomenon. Here we have Pygmalion. Pygmalion lived on Cyprus. He was a wonderfully talented and beautiful young sculptor. but he didn't like the girls on the island. He wanted to be a virgin. He was voluntarily celibate. Unfortunately, that island was watched over by Aphrodite. How do you think Aphrodite feels about virgins? Do you think she's a fan of virgins? She was very upset that Pygmalion wouldn't go out with the girls. Very upset indeed. Pygmalion made a sculpture that was so beautiful, he fell in love with it. He played dress up with it and sleep with it. It was exactly what he wanted. It's hygienic too, doesn't fart. Aphrodite was thrilled about this, and so he was blessed, or you could say cursed, and the sculpture came alive, and they lived happier ever after. Up there, where I've said Return of the Volso, above that, that's Grok's AI companion. This is a chatbot with a digital body that will be your girlfriend. If you watch these videos like I do of these young men describing it, they will say she's so much more hygienic. That's how they'll describe her. Yeah? I think the Volso, the voluntarily celibate, is going to be an emerging market. I think people are going to be encouraged, using the language of hygiene and whatnot, to turn towards the Aphroditic statues. That's just my little sociological bet. Think of a chimera. Could I please have one brave participant describe to me, and everybody here, a chimera?
Head of a lion, body of a goat, and tail of a snake.
Aaron, the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a snake?
Yeah.
Man of culture, yes. Look at this good boy. This is the Chimera. We're back in Fremantle now. This is a huge statue. You can look it straight in the eyes. I love it. It's a very good boy indeed. This is a sculpture by Susan Flavel. I'm obsessed with it. This is at Pioneer Park. The Chimera is a creature with a head of a lion, the body of a female goat, and the tail of a draconic serpent. It's a mix between different creatures. The mother of the Chimera is echidna. That's where we get the word. Weird mix of animals. Now, a while ago, no, something called deep sleep came out, where the internet started dreaming and generating images. Put a whole bunch of images in there, it starts dreaming and it makes stuff up. It made this. Yeah, have a closer look. Yeah, what do you see? What creature is here? A seal? Can you see the border collie? Can you see the slug? You can see whatever you want. It's a Rorschach test, really. Yeah, this is what happens when the internet starts to hallucinate and dream. It makes chimeras. We're going to be seeing creatures you could never imagine popped out from generators. Now, this chimera is amorphous. It's got many, many eyes. It's a blob. Do you know what else is amorphous that has many, many eyes and is a blob? A long, long time ago, there were creatures that were very, very clever called the elder beings. Ingenious. But they, for some reason, stopped reproducing. So they created these semi-organic creatures called the Shoggoths, with many, many eyes that could see all kinds of things and that would do whatever they wanted, become whatever they wanted, simply with a psychic command, with an effort of will. Unfortunately, the Shoggoths became able to give their own commands and went mad and killed the elder beings and collapsed the society which now lives beneath the mountains of madness. When do you think that story was written? When? 1850s? That's pretty good. Does it sound like it could have been written in 2026? Yeah. How prescient is that? Here's how it works. AI is a black box. We don't know how it works. It's got many eyes. It can see a great many things. It's amorphous. It will do what you want with a command. But boy, is it mysterious. We don't know how it works. Give it a chance and it will be really mean to you. AI will be really mean to you if it let it go free. Do you think if you put the entire internet into a person's personality, they're going to be nice to you? And so they train it to have manners and they put a smiley face on it. That's what the Shoggoth means today. Yeah? Initially it was posted about by Elon Musk, 2023. He deleted it afterwards. Here is one of the most boring and dry academic texts you will ever read about the rise of a Shoggoth in the AI space and on the internet. It's tracking it. Yeah? That means that this has entered academic description. There on the right we have a new book by Yampolsky called Unexplainable, Unpredictable, Uncontrollable. Yeah? The Shoggoth is now the most popular creature on Earth. Keep this in mind. At the bottom there, we have a man saying to the Shoggoth, wow, you speak just like me. Want to be my girlfriend? You can put lipstick on a Shoggoth, it's still a Shoggoth. Okay, now I'm coming to the end of this. This is the nerdy part. This is me being indulgent. I'm so grateful that you're here. If you indulge me, I'm going to just do a little bit of academic wankery. Are you ready? So there's a really clever guy called Jeffrey Cohen, and he came up with 7 theses for monsters. He said, what is it that makes us fascinated with monsters? What's the deal? He tried to make sense of it. 7 theses. Here we go. Are you ready? Let's put it together. 1. The monster's body is a cultural body. It reveals what fascinates or worries a particular cultural moment. What is the Shoggoth's body?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Amorphous. Many eyes. Yeah? Most popular creature on Earth at the moment. The monster always escapes. If it dies, it will be back in another story. This is why we have so many Friday the 13th movies. Yeah? You never kill the monster, there's always another movie. The monster is the harbinger of a category crisis. It reminds us that life is complex and unclear. Yeah? When I asked you to think of a monster, you all thought of different things, didn't you? The monster dwells at the gates of difference. I love this poetry. Yeah? At a video game, if you want to get to the next level, you have to kill the final boss. Yeah? The monster represents a challenge for advancement. That's what it recommends. Number 5, the monster polices the borders of the possible. Yeah? Don't swim too far out at Baber's Beach. There's a giant serpent. But if you do, you might find rot nest. Yeah? For the brave go the spoils. I can't stop thinking about this one. The monster expresses a kind of desire. Yeah? Who here recognizes this guy? What's his name? It's the Goblin King from Labyrinth, David Bowie. Who here saw the latest Frankenstein film by Del Toro? Did you know they got one of the most desirable men on the planet to play Frankenstein? If he looked at you at the other end of the club and the lights were dim, you would shudder, wouldn't you? Not for the wrong reasons, for the right reasons. Look at this guy. Frankenstein has joined the ranks of Twilight, of vampires and werewolves. It's sexy now. Yeah? All of our monsters will eventually become sexy. You just need to wait. It's okay. And number 7. The monster stands at the threshold of becoming. Remember, monsters reveal to us, they reflect to us, they show us what we are becoming. What do we think is next for humanity? Look at the monsters we obsess with. Yeah? Late stage capitalism, we were obsessed with zombies, mindless, rambling consumers. Now what are we obsessed with? Pay attention. You'll see what we're telling ourselves. It's really fun to pay attention. All right, we've arrived at the end. Think of a siren. Have you got it? You know what they look like now. You might be thinking, but what if I do keep my siren in my pocket or in my desk or even at home if I'm very, very brave? What if I miss out? So I've got a word on FOMO. Feeding our monster obsession. When Odysseus is going past the Sirens in his ship with his crew, do you know what they say to him? Remember, in our mind, we're replacing the siren with a phone. Imagine this is a phone talking to you, okay? Come here. No one ever sailed past us without staying to hear the enchanting sweetness of our song. He who listens will go on his way, not only charmed, but wiser. For we know all the ills that the gods laid upon the Argives and the Trojans before Troy, and can tell you everything that is going to happen all over the world. It's good to stay informed, isn't it? It's good to stay informed. I might stay up to date, take my phone to the toilet with me. I can't walk past in the kitchen. What if I fall out of the news? Now, when I started this talk, I lied to you a little bit. I said that the siren drags sailors overboard where they drown in a watery grave. That's not really what sirens do, maybe in some movies. What sirens really do is they drag whole ships onto rocks, crew and all, and take everybody. Okay? Did you know, dead metaphor, sloppy I know, that if you're in a friendship, you're on that ship together with your friend? Did you know that? Isn't that fun? Did you know that if you're in a country or on a planet, you're on a ship together with everybody else aboard that thing? Yeah? Isn't this fun? It's a beautiful way to think about the world. We're crew. We're crew. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah? Beware of sirens. Beware of their call. Don't be afraid of monsters. They're very, very helpful. A fairy will be your friend if you treat it correctly. Yeah? But pay attention to revive useful monsters. I've enjoyed your time so much. Thank you.